Do you want to buy a CLIQ camping chair, but you're curious if they live up to all the hype? Well, I was curious, and this one just came in. So we're going to unbox it and do a full review as well as first impressions, and let's get into it. I am Meanderin Mitch, and like I've said before, I don't mind spending extra money on a product if it's worth it quality-wise. But I don't like spending unnecessary money if it's just something that just the name or whatever you might have. One of these products, they seem very unique. I've not had a ton of experience with them, but I'm excited to get this open and check it out. So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna start with the unboxing part, see how it looks coming out of the box, and how simple it is to set up with no prior practice. So let's start with that. The user manual, which I'm gonna try to not look at too strenuously, and the chair. So first out of the box, it is packaged very efficiently. There's not a lot of waste, so that's nice. This feels great in the hand. It does not feel, it doesn't feel cheap or anything like that, which I wasn't expecting it to, but it just kind of underestimated how good that can feel in the hand. They advertise that it is the size of a water bottle. That would be a pretty big water bottle, but it's still much, much smaller than most other chairs, so we'll give it that. It also does have a solid bit of weight to it, which is not, again, a bad thing, because you don't want something super light to where it's not gonna hold you. But yeah, I would say first impression, just looking at it and feeling it, it feels solid, it feels quality. So let's open it up and see how easy this thing is to actually open. Well, that was totally guessing on how to do that, but that is extended. I don't know, you can't see that. That is the size of the chair. So that is fully extended, 2 clicks in the back, 1 click in the front, and just chilling. This does have these little mesh pockets. I don't know if that's yeah, it is a pocket. So if you can see this, there is a little mesh pocket that goes the whole way down under, and I thought it was open underneath, but it is not. So I guess that counts as your mesh pocket. I'm gonna scoot you over there and sit down in the chair and tell you what I think about that. First thing I noticed when sitting down is there's not quite as much wobble as I thought there was gonna be, and that is based on pretty much just what I've heard from other people. But yeah, it feels pretty solid. I mean, there's a little bit of wiggle, but I think that's part of the whole design to make it more comfortable, which is working. This is great. It hugs your body very well. There's no backrest or neck rest on this version, but I don't typically lean very far back when I'm sitting around the fire anyways, so this will be nice. I'm gonna say first impression on the first sit is pretty good. Feels really nice. Depending on your size, the material here could potentially get irritating. I feel like I'm on the larger side of what most people watching this would be, so I'm comfortable in it. I would say if you are a little bit bigger than myself, it could potentially cause some rubbing issues, but just something to consider. But yeah, feels comfy. See myself sitting around the fire in it already. So that is it for the first part of the unboxing. I'm going to go test this out on a camping trip this weekend, do a couple videos, and then we're gonna get back to talking about it, how it performed, how easy it was to move around, and all that fun stuff. But I just wanted to do the unboxing. I was pretty excited, I can't lie. This is my first gifted collaboration item. It is important to me to keep trust with you guys so that you know what I'm saying is legit. So I won't be working with any companies that require positive reviews. So that's just something I wanted to note before we go too much further. It's a gifted collaboration, but it's not there's no requirement to say anything. So, but that being said, let's get into the camping trip and we will talk about this chair just a little bit more in 1 second. I will see you there. All right, so I lied. I feel like you guys probably want to see the first time closing this also. So I'm gonna close this and then we're gonna go to the next part, but this is how I think it should work. Push the buttons in the back. You gotta push it in. There you go. Not the most gracious first fold up, but that was very simple. So that's the first close, and now we will fast forward to the campsite where we will be using this. So the last time I talked to the camera, I was leaving for a beach trip, taking this chair, and I took some videos. They didn't turn out the greatest, so we're gonna scrap those, and we're just gonna come back and talk after I've used the chair for a few more weeks. So without further ado, let's get into the pros and cons of this chair, and then we're going to talk about if I think you should buy this chair or what situation you might want to consider buying the chair. So for me and most people, the biggest pro of this chair is definitely going to be the portability. So this chair folds up very small and very easy to set up and tear down. So realistically, you're looking at between 5 and 10 seconds to set up, and that's after practicing a couple times. Your first time might take you 15 seconds, but that's still really quick for most camping chairs, so take that for what you will. They do advertise this thing as the size of a water bottle, and I will say it must be a pretty big water bottle because it is not the size of a normal 16.9 fluid ounce water bottle. It's more of a, all day kind of water bottle. But I will say it is much smaller than pretty much every other camp chair that I've had. So the size, it might be exaggerated a little bit, but it's still very compact and a very solid size. That being said, it does fit into the water bottle pouch of my backpack, which is another big pro for me, is being pretty much the perfect size for the thing that I already had. So going off of portability, another pro is just definitely going to be your setup and tear down. Like I said, you're looking at between 5 and 10 seconds to set it up and about 10 to 15 seconds to tear it down. So that's much quicker for any other camp chair that I've seen. And it's nice to have something where if you're going to be portable and you're going to be moving, you can fold it up. It's not a big deal. Take it to where you're going, set it back up, where you don't have to do that awkward carry your chair and move 100 yards, and you don't want to fold it up because it's a pain to fold back out and all that fun stuff. So it being so portable and being easy to set up and tear down is definitely another great pro. Now I have found with some things, when you get that portable, you lose a lot of quality and it doesn't feel very sturdy. And that is definitely not the case with this. Sitting in this chair, it feels very sturdy. There is an adjustment period where you sit in this chair and it rocks backwards. The base is built to have some of that rock to make it more comfortable for you to sit in. So you're gonna take a second to adjust to that. But once you do, you feel very sturdy. You can rock a little bit and it doesn't make you feel like you're gonna fall. I do want to emphasize it is after a little bit. So your first few times sitting in the chair, if you're like me, you don't trust the rock because every other camp chair you've ever sat in, rock means you're falling. So as soon as you start to feel that rock, you wanna sit forward, you don't have to. While we're talking about sitting forward, I did catch myself sitting forward in the chair and not fully relaxing for probably the first 3 or 4 days of using it. Again, just trying to fight that instinct to not fall backwards. So trust the chair, lean back, the quality is solid, the base is solid, it's not going anywhere. It definitely feels very quality as well, which is another big thing for me when you have a little bit of a pricier item, is if it feels quality in the hand. I don't remember all the details of what kind of metal and all that stuff off the top of my head, but it is definitely a solid feel, a lightweight material, but not overly lightweight to where it would be practical for backpacking, but we'll talk about that in a second. Now, before we go to cons, I'm going to say this as neither a pro or a con, and that's comfortability. So if you're sitting in it for short periods of time, I think it's a very comfortable chair. Again, once you get used to trusting it and feeling comfortable. But if you're sitting in this thing for very extended periods of time, there are definitely much more comfortable chairs. So we might have to do a video on what situations actually make sense to purchase the CLIQ chairs. And if you guys want that video, drop in the comments, because I'm not gonna make a video if you guys don't need it. But I do think that might be something that would be good to cover. These birds better fuck off. But let's jump into the cons, and these are probably pretty universal for most people, but they also might not be something that you consider. So take that for what you will. The first con, in my opinion, is definitely the price point of this chair.
For me and most of the people that I camp with, $110 for a chair is not something that I want to do. The exception to that are some of my backpacking friends where $100 is pretty average for a chair, and especially when you go ultralight. But if it's not going to be an ultralight chair and you can't take it backpacking, is it worth it? And that's something we'll have to talk about in the video with what kind of camping you're doing, because it might be worth it, it might not be worth it. So that's hard to say. The next big con for me is that it doesn't come with any kind of carrying case. Is it a huge deal? No. Have I adjusted? It fits in my backpack perfectly, so that's nice and convenient. But for $110, I would really like to see some kind of case where I can throw it over my shoulder and not be stuck carrying it using one of my hands when I'm walking somewhere. It's just a little convenient thing that really shouldn't cost them too much to add, but could be a nice help for us. Even if you don't use it and you're used to not using it, it's still just nice to have around. As far as consistent cons across the board, those are really my only two. The other pros and cons are going to kind of depend on your situation. I know I've said that a few times, but it really, really depends on what you plan on getting out of this chair. If you want one chair for everything and backpacking is part of that, this is probably not your chair, just because on those backpacking trips, it's not going to be worth it. But if you want one chair that is going to be universal for everything and portability is your biggest factor, this is probably going to be your chair. It's comfortable, sturdy. The customer service, I'm told, is awesome. I haven't had to use it yet, knock on wood, but we'll see if that changes. But from people I've talked to, they have said that dealing with the customer service is pretty great. So the more I talk about this, the more I'm talking myself into making the video on choosing your camp chair. I just think that there's so many different things to consider that might be a easy video and a very helpful video. So keep an eye out for that. Even if you didn't comment, you still get to see it. But if you did comment, I do really appreciate that. And we'll have to get into that video and see what we got. But those are my first thoughts and final thoughts and all of the unboxing. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If there's anything else you guys would like to see, make sure you let me know. But until then, I appreciate you. Peace.